There's been much focus today on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about the D and the I for diversity and inclusion. COVID has caused many challenges for companies, both large and small, and one of those is diversity. Now, diversity can mean many things. Diversity can mean gender, age, religion, culture. But today I'd like to focus on diversity of skill sets, because diversity of skill sets will by nature also bring on diversity of representation. And I'd also like to talk about the I. I'd like to talk about inclusion. What are we doing to actually include people with diverse backgrounds or diverse skill sets? How are we embracing them and bringing them into our organization? On the cusp of COVID, I actually spoke at a conference on digital transformation. And while the directors and executives were very engaged with that discussion, they were slow to react. But once COVID hit, they no longer had the luxury of time. They no longer had the luxury to decide what the budget wanted to be, when they wanted to start. The only question they needed to ask was, how quickly can we execute? Companies that are resilient and agile are those companies that tend to be more successful. Now, diversity is important across the organization, and there are 4 areas that I would like to focus on today. The first is marketing, human resources, operations, and IT and cybersecurity. And I'd like to start with marketing. Never has it been so important for companies to have an intimate relationship with their customers, to clearly understand the consumer profile, social media platforms, communication, innovation, data analytics. Most likely the consumer profile has changed, and it's important for companies to actually go back and look at their consumers and understand if that consumer profile has changed so that they can adapt their messaging and their product portfolio. For example, Amazon today might think that I use 24 rolls of toilet paper a week. Clearly, that's not the case. So understanding your analytics and your buying behaviors is going to be critically important for marketers moving forward in the future. Companies around the globe have had to revamp their entire go-to-market strategies. One of the demands right now is for digital natives. Digital natives by nature are going to be your youngest employees. They were born after 1996 and they are digitally savvy employees. It's important that you understand who they are. It's important that as you include them into your organization, that you value them and that you respect them. So look at your marketing leaders. Are they creative? Are they embracing cross-cultural marketing initiatives? Really important as we move forward. The executive team needs to be aware and savvy in this area. Equally on the board, and this is an area I'd really like to focus on, does the board have a marketing executive or someone with marketing expertise? Do they understand voice of customer? It's really critical at this point that voice of customer is understood so that you can help with the growth opportunities as well as help mitigate competitive risks. HR teams are facing unprecedented challenges today. They are fatigued, and some may even say they're zoomed out at this point. They have remote workforces, employee privacy. They've been reworking social distancing spaces, both in the offices and on the factory floor, in the lunchrooms. They're really dealing with a lot of mental health today, and that will continue post-COVID as well. Now, many HR departments are not staffed to manage issues of this magnitude and complexity. So assessing the skills of your executive HR leader or your CHRO is really critical. How are they managing through diversity? Do you have a chief diversity officer? What are the metrics around inclusion, and how are you measuring effectiveness in this area? Most importantly, having a board member with HR experience is really critical at this point. And some of the questions they may want to be asking is your CHRO a peacetime or a wartime leader? And are they asking for investment around the workforce for the long term? Operations for many companies, the supply chain has been completely disrupted. procurement, ERP, distribution, vendor compliance. Is your operations leader prepared to manage through all of these issues? When they are looking at changing suppliers, are they looking at diversity? Are they looking at minority and women-owned businesses? All critical topics as you look at your operations leader. How are they handling technology, AI and robotics, and how are they viewing technology and in terms of how it can help grow the organization? All very critical issues. Typically, there is an operations leader, director on the board. Are they technically savvy, and are they looking at technology to help grow the organization? Never has there been more important time for data governance. There is an exponential amount of data coming into the organization, and that's been accelerated by COVID. You have consumer information, employee information, employee privacy issues, financial data. The data coming into the organization today is more than it's ever been, and enterprise-wide data governance is becoming a critical issue. Is your IT leader or your CIO prepared to become a digital officer for the entire company? And most importantly, at the board level, is data governance on the agenda, and who's managing that? Do you have a technically savvy individual who can really help drive that for the future? So there's no question that companies need to focus on diversity and inclusion, looking for strong leadership and diverse skill sets moving forward. One, evaluate your new business strategy and make sure that your talent is aligned with that new business strategy. And where it isn't, you need to make changes, expedite those changes. Secondly, at the board level, let's make sure that at the board level that you're evaluating your board to make sure all of your members have the needed skill sets. And where they don't, you may need to rotate board members out or add board members to the existing board. And lastly, there's advisors. Using advisors or advisory boards to help supplement, particularly in those key areas, is critical at this point. And most importantly, develop an onboarding process that creates an open and cohesive culture for your business, because diversity and inclusion is here to stay.